Hello, everybody. It's the old bear from the Old Bear's Den of Bigfoot. I know we promised you a live this weekend, but the gentleman we were going to do the live with, he's had some issues that he had to take care of at home, and this will give us a chance. We just got our new shirts in, me and my wife. This is the one for it's a pullover hoodie. And you can see the picture on the front of it looks pretty good. But this is the Bigfoot that I saw back when I was 16. I had someone draw this for me, and she did a wonderful job. And I want to thank her for doing such a wonderful job. And Cindy, I appreciate it. And I'll get my wife to come over here, and we'll show you the pink one. If I can get her to step right there. I want to make sure you see it. There you go. It's in pink, and it looks good on my wife. Ladies, it's in pink, and I think it's in hot pink too.
Two different color pinks.
Yeah, we have hot pink and this pink, and she likes it. It's a little. It's not really cold out here this evening, but it's enough to put a pullover on and come out and we're going to give you the story of what happened last Friday night. And let me set this candle down. There's still bugs out here. They like to eat my wife up, and I don't really like them eating her up. I'm sorry, I'm moving the camera around a whole bunch. But we're right here in front of the house, and it got a little strange here today. This afternoon, all the birds shut up. There wasn't any crickets talking like you can hear right now in the background. And I hope y'all can hear me real well. I put my headset on. Hopefully it'll work better. But my wife and I went out to a friend of ours to join him for a cookout last weekend. And well, we had a wonderful dinner with him. We had he cooked out on the open fire, and he cooked what was it we had, babe? Ribs, baked beans, corn,
and
mushrooms and onions that were sautéed. When we got done eating, I felt like a tick about ready to pop. Any of you older people on this channel know what I'm talking about. In other words, I was full. But he sent me what he wanted to have put out on my channel. And he's a good friend of mine, and we love him. He's like a brother, but like I said, he had some issues, and we couldn't do the live today. So he sent me, his part of the story, and we can add to it afterwards. If there's any details missed, we'll add to them. What we saw from our perspective. So I hope y'all enjoy this. Y'all sit back and relax and listen to this one. My friend wrote, on September the 9th, 2022 at around 9 a.m., he says, I called the Old Bear's Den to ask him if his wife and he had planned on coming out for a cookout that evening. Well, around 10 a.m., his wife said yes, that they were coming. He says, so I started getting things ready because I was going to slow cook some ribs on an open fire. And so I started gathering small twigs and branches that would be easy to get and make good small wood that was easy to maintain the fire and control the heat. I still managed to burn it some. Go figure, right? I walked out the hill from where the cookout spot is to cut on some small tree branches that had fell out of the trees during the past few hard storms we have had in the area. He said wood was easy to get. And at 2:14 p.m., I sit down from breaking sticks to rest a minute. It was a beautiful day that day. Perfect temperature, and while I was sitting down, a squatch growled at me. What he believed to be a squatch growled at him, deep down in the hollow below him. He says, prior to this, for a few months, I have been studying on legal spiritual rights. As God told Adam in Genesis to take dominion and subdue the land. That scripture has a lot of information in it. God said, take dominion. That implies that someone other than Adam had legal rights. But by God telling Adam to take dominion, that also means that whoever had prior dominion was illegitimate. They had rights, but wasn't the rightful and legal rulers. He says, so I have been putting some serious study on this subject for the past few months in order to correct some issues in my own personal life, stumbling blocks, strongholds. They're all a curse, and they have illegitimacy. They create problems in our life, and they have no legal rights to our life, but they're illegitimate, and we still have to deal with them. So back to this squash that growled at me. I instantly said to it, not in a loud voice, just a normal tone, I said, you have no legal rights anymore to my land. If you challenge me, I'll kill you. Pretty strong words. Not any other vocal was made by that squatch. He says in his second one, part of the story, he said, so I continued to pick up sticks with a handsaw, caught small 2-inch pieces for the bonfire to cook on. Over 6 hours went by. I cooked, kept cleaning up my yard from all the dead tree branches, enjoying the beautiful day. The perfect temperature, thanking God for the day and my health. So 6+ hours went by. Micromanaged the fire. I still burnt stuff. But I got the ribs cooked. Old Bear and his wife came strolling in. I finished cooking the corn and baked beans, and we ate. Beautiful everything. Just a little after dark, I was talking to them about what I'd been studying on legal spiritual rights from the biblical definition, talking scripture. We do that a lot. And I learn a lot from him, and he learns, I don't know if he learns a lot from me, he learns a little bit from me. But we tend to, we're Christian brothers, and we tend to bounce ideas off from each other. And my wife, she asks questions, and we try to answer her questions for her. And so, we do it all the time. Every time we go out, we end up talking about, the Holy Bible, and we do scriptures out of it, and we try to decipher them between the three of us to get them right. And then he says, and we had been hearing some cows doing some moo-moos from a farm across the mountain from his property. He said the moo-moo just wasn't right. Well, those moo-moos got closer and more of a whooping sound, which they did. Well, in 20 minutes or less, a suspected Sasquatch started whooping very loud and deep, growling just 50 to 100 feet behind my house. And he has a couple of trained dogs at his home, and they started barking and going crazy. I mean, they were hyped up big time. They weren't scared of it, rather wanted out of their cage to go after it. His dogs are very protective of him. Sorry about that, guys. I wanted to shut that noisy little, well, it's not noisy. It's just a small AC that we have here at the house that we have in our front room because the air ducts in the house. Sometimes we don't push it into that room, so we add an AC in that room. And it's in the window and it kicked on. I apologize. Uh, Now, where was I? They was not scared of it. Rather, they wanted out of their cage to go after it. My dogs are very protective of me, and they are very protective of me. Uh, they have some muscle to back that up and to back up their bark. But we are talking Sasquatch here, okay? Old Bear and his wife hear all this. We are sitting within 2 feet of each other, and this is their second time hearing this Sasquatch in my place. And I'm about 99.99% sure that it was a Sasquatch because of the sound that it was making and the way that it was acting. And I'm pretty sure that it was probably a beta male, which means it's not the top dog, but it's one of the older males in the group. And I think that it was probably trying to assert its dominance over my friend and me and my wife. And well, we'll leave the rest of it for later. And they've been coming for a few years now, and I know they was probably starting to think that he was full of it. Never ever once thought that. We've been up the first time we were ever up there. We had rocks thrown at us. Well, I was hit with rocks. I was wearing a red shirt. I was pelted in the back with rocks. There's no way. And the thing is, those rocks were not creek rocks. They were number 57 gravel, limestone gravel, that were thrown at me and were hitting me in the back. A few of them ended up bouncing off my back because I had my back turned this way, and they hit me in the back and ended up in my chair. And my wife saw them in the chair, and so did my friend. So we never ever once thought that he was full of anything. We knew that there was Sasquatch up there. They were, if it was people throwing rocks at me, they had a heck of a daggone arm, or they had a heck of a daggone slingshot to be throwing them from 2 flats down, uphill to the top of the hill, and then hitting me in the back. And at different angles that I was standing that night, there's no way that it'd been a person. They'd had to have eyes on us at all times, which means they would have had to be within 50 to 100 feet of us, and be watching me only, and no one else that night. And but that's for another time. That's just letting you know that we never once thought that he was trying to pull the wool over someone's eyes or trying to, hoax or anything like that. He was right there with us the whole time. There wasn't anyone else on that property because we were out there well before daylight that day. And, like I said, I'd been hit in the back with some number 57 limestones. And there's not a rock quarry on his place. There's not a rock quarry near his place. Those would have had to have been gotten from down on the road at the end of the holler off his point, which is 1.5 miles away. Somebody would have had to carry him up there and then found a way to hit me in the back, like I said, from probably 2 levels below us. And let's see. He says, but this was the second time they were there for the big event. Whoop screams and bluff charges, tree shakes. But this time there wasn't 500 foot of deep holler between us and it. It was only about 150 foot of flat ground. He's right. So he proceeded to walk away from us down a little bank and then down behind his home to the side of the opposite side of the house from where we believe this thing was. And he carries, he carries a firearm when we're out there. And when that stuff starts going on, uh, he's not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of them. My wife may be a little bit afraid to this day, but she has no reason to worry. And he walked down the opposite side of his house from where this thing was at. So my house was between me and it. So I could maybe get the surprise on it. And I did, all right. He says I was standing around the corner. And as soon... What is it?
It's a grasshopper, a green grasshopper crawling around on your hood. There he goes.
Get off my head. The grasshopper watcher over here didn't kill it. And he said as soon as he heard it growl again, so he could pinpoint the area where it was at, he stepped out from behind the house, and he put 3 rounds towards this thing at about belly height, so about 3 or 4 foot off the ground. He said everything got real quiet, which it did. The dogs quit barking. But as soon as he walked back towards us, they started barking again. So he says nothing. Now the funny thing is, nothing prior to this day, all day long, told me Sasquatch was in the area. The birds were chirping, frogs, crickets all day long, squirrels, everything was out in full force that day. Even when it was growling, but when those 3 rounds went off, it got dead quiet. It did. The insects shut off, any night birds, owls, anything. There was, we heard everything right because it was right at dark. And, it was dark enough that you couldn't see in the woods, but you could see around the home. But this thing was far enough in the woods that you couldn't see it completely. And, and there's no houses in behind his. There's, he lives out in the middle of nowhere. And, it's pretty desolate. I think the closest house is maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile from him. And so let's get back to where we was at. He said he walked back to the cookout spot, reloaded his magazine, because he didn't know what was getting ready to happen. He says, but he's put lead to their backsides for 20 years. But never been challenged that close to his house. But remember, I did give it a legal choice. I said 6 hours before that when it growled at me, if it challenged me, I'd shoot it. He had a choice to challenge me or leave, so here we are. He says, Old Bear and his wife can tell you that within 10 minutes of putting 3 rounds at the spot of this growling, you have never heard an animal in North America with the reservations of a grizzly make such screaming, growling, moaning pain that was off the charts. Which it was pretty loud, and it was. Well, I'll try to mimic the sound for you right now so you can have an idea. It would start to do this. It would go, whoa, and then it would, excuse me. And
seconds too. A good little bit.
yeah, and to continue, he says, "This is nothing you could ever compare them to death rattles, but a lot of growling and moaning and 4 whoops. Then in one direction, about 600 to 800 yards away on a ridge line, a whoop answered back. And to the right, about 300 yards, a whoop sounded off. Loud, loud whoops. Then in more than 10 minutes, there was 2 whoops around 150, 200 foot across the hill, directly on the side of the hill behind my house that the squatch was on. He said, I think that he thinks that he hit this squatch in an area by its action. It was in so much pain, it couldn't move and needed help. All this probably lasted 40 minutes or so, which it did. For 40 minutes, we were definitely on edge, waiting on the rest of them to show up. And of course, I'm always carrying, and that day my wife didn't have her handgun with her. I didn't have my AR or A10 or any of that with me, and I should have. I should have known better. But like you said, it lasted about 40 minutes, and it kind of seemed like hours to him. But it was adrenaline flowing. Not knowing how many there were, we stayed on guard. After we heard a scream way down the holler, we determined it was gone. So then we did walk down and look around just a little bit. But let me tell you this right here and now. When it moaned, it did that whoop and did those growls for the last time, it had done gotten to me enough, and I'd went and got a flashlight so I could see, and I had a pretty decent flashlight. It's pretty bright. It's almost 1,000 lumens by itself, and I started that way. I told my wife to stay right there, and I said, if you hear anything, get in the truck and go. So I walked down there, and he went with me, and we went down there. We didn't see anything, but by this time, this thing may have gotten help and got out of there. We did hear a lot of noise, and it's just one of those things. We didn't go down there soon enough, or we'd have probably solved this situation. But everybody would know what a Bigfoot is by this time. But hindsight's 20/20. I didn't want to leave my wife there without a firearm, and all I had was my sidearm. I didn't have a rifle. Didn't have something that could, if we got attacked, I didn't have something with me that I could bam, 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 and do what I have to do to protect me and my friend and my wife. And so I didn't want to push the issue, but I should have. And like I said, hindsight is 20/20, and I should have pushed the issue, but I just didn't. I was afraid that they would come up and try to get between me and my wife, and that'd be the worst thing that any of them can do. Or get between me and my Christian brother, and that would be the worst thing that they can do, along with getting between me and my wife. And I wouldn't have been happy. But he said the next morning he went down before the rain started, because it did start raining the next day. He said he didn't find any blood, but the ground was heavily, the leaves and everything on the ground were all messed up, and you could see that something had struggled to either get up or had help getting up, and it was still struggling to get up. And he said the ground was heavily walked on, and he found about an 8 foot by 8 foot spot of ground that was scratched up, and it was in line with the directions of its whoops and the growling. And he says, I hope old Bear and his wife can convey to you the intenseness of the pain this thing was in. It was in a lot of pain. I mean, the type of pain and the sound that we were hearing was that it was immobilized and it was calling for help and it was hurting real bad. About like, a person getting gut shot, screaming and hollering for help. Uh, he said it. He said he would like to get a bigger caliber, but the firearm he's got's big enough to injure one. And if he'd been up close to it, he'd probably be big enough to take down one if you place the shot. But this is a physical battle that has to be won. Spiritually, if you go into this kind of physical situation without having won the dominion spiritually, you will lose. And I agree with him 100% on that. That when we go anywhere, that just like in the video that we went out to do Bigfooting, where I saw this one for the first time at age 16. Before we left our house, I prayed. It's just something that, you just speak to God and he hears you, and he was watching over me, my wife, and KG that night, and Cecil. And that's why I believe those Bigfoot didn't come. They came close, but they didn't come up super close. I think we had the angels of the Lord watching over us and holding them at a certain distance. But I try to pray every time. I pray every time we go out and do anything with Bigfoot, because it is a spiritual battle along with a physical battle. They're not a spiritual being, but any help that you can get from God himself will protect you from these creatures, and it'll keep them at a bay because of how they came to be. And I've talked about that before, and I still believe it to this day that they were not created by God. They were created by the fallen, because they made it with women after the flood, and that's how they came to be. And I believe that they're descendants of Goliath and the other Nephilim that were on this planet during that time, because they were created of another, of something that we would call demonic and human being, and there's animal in them and everything else. So let me go on with the story. That's enough of my thoughts. So let's go with his. He said, only spiritual dominion gives you physical victory. I hope someone listening sends this video to Scott Carpenter. I'd like to reach out to him. I can chew the fat with a Christian brother like him, and I have a very valuable piece of information that Mr. Scott Carpenter needs to know. It's a game changer. It will put us at the advantage with these biblical giants. And he says, for me to convey to you, the people on my channel, the level of pain that this thing was in. People were not puffing this up to sound bigger or more extreme. This was a powerful encounter. And he tells me to take it from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my better half her phone back, and I'm gonna move this back just a little bit and have my wife scoot over here, and I'm gonna have her tell you all what uh, what did you see, what did you hear that night. So hold on a second. We're gonna stick a headset on her and let her talk. Okay? Y'all hold on.
It's weird.
Is that good? Put the mic up near your face. There you go. Now just talk normal.
Hello, everybody. Yes, last Saturday night.
It wasn't Saturday, it was Friday.
Oh, it was Friday.
Yeah,
sorry. Last Friday night was truly very intense. The whoops, I mean, just like, they sounded like they were very close. Very close. And it wasn't a person, and they were coming from different directions. And, you know, like Old Bear said, our friends' dogs were going nuts. Then they'd shut up for a little while. Then there would be a whoop, and the dogs would go nuts again.
Mm-hmm.
It just sent chills up my back. And then when our friend went and fired off 3 rounds, I mean, that was loud, and it just kind of made me jump a little bit, but then everything was just kind of quiet for a little bit. Then, a little bit, you hear a whoop, and then another whoop. Then you'd hear that growly, moany, drawn out, painful sounding creature. Like it was really, really hurt bad. And then it's like it would go on for maybe like 30, 40 seconds. And then it'd be quiet for a little while, and we might hear another whoop. And then it would start that rumbly, growly thing again and go on for, 30, 40 seconds. Then it would stop. Then it would go back to the growly thing. It was very intense. Very intense. It really was. And then we kept hearing, we heard whoops getting closer again. So, it was very intense. It was. All I could think was, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, is this really happening? Whew. Yeah, it was really something else. So that's all I got to say about that. Oh, you forgot to tell them about the smell?
Oh, yeah. Well, give me the headset back, and I'll get right on that. Sorry guys, I only have one headset. I haven't bought my wife one yet. We have to do this on a budget. So, the smell was like a skunk mixed in with like a garbage dump. Your local landfill. You know that smell that comes from your local landfill. When you go to a landfill and you dumping trash and stuff that you have to take out there to get rid of. That smell, along with a very dead skunk for about a week. That was the smell we were getting from the area that this thing was laying over there moaning and whooping in, and it was kind of a groan, and it was a very intense, painful groan. Like I said, it's like if somebody gets shot in their belly or something, and they're moaning and groaning and they're in pain, and so I don't know if he hit this thing, grazed it, or what, or if he shot it and injured it to the point of it's, being unable to move, or just in so much pain from where it was hit that it was unable to move, and it was groaning, and the groans were kind of a growl mixed with a groan of pain. And we finally, like I said, I finally just had enough, and I told her to stay stay right there, don't move, unless she hears me open up on something, and she's to get out of there. Keys were already in the truck. All she had to do is run down there, jump in the seat, push the start button, hit the brake, push the start button, and drive away. You don't have time to adjust the seat at that point. You just got to do what you got to do and get out of there. And, I'm not going to put her life at risk. I would stay. Whether she listened to me or not is another thing. But, that's neither here nor there. We didn't get to that point. But the sounds were just like, if you've never been on a battlefield, look up the movie Iwo Jima, and you'll hear one of the guys out there calling somebody's name, and him groaning, after he calls the name, the way he was calling for one of his buddies from the platoon that was there on Iwo Jima, the Marines. You'll hear the sorrow and the pain that was in his voice. So if you, that'll give you an idea of what it was. And it's a sorrowful, painful type of sound we were hearing. And I had enough, and went and got a flashlight, and I walked down there and went to see if, you kind of felt bad for this creature. So, I thought, well, it's time to, it suffered enough. And it wasn't, maybe 10 minutes or so after this thing had been, after he'd walked back up there, that I walked down there 10 minutes or so.
Wasn't too awful long.
So I walked down there and we couldn't find it. And the next day he went out and found the place where it was at. And if I can, I'll put a picture up of the area that he found the next day that was kind of tore up around the ground. And we think this might be where this thing laid, crawled up there or ran up there and laid down. But it's not the point of what I'm trying to tell y'all tonight. It's not the point of this thing was threatening, because it kept coming closer and closer. I don't know if it was because it smelled the food or it smelled his two very well-trained dogs. Like I said, they're very obedient to him. They're very protective of him. They're even protective when we go up there of him. Those dogs, I knew them dogs when he got them when they were pups. So what I'm trying to really say is this creature coming up there that close, he wasn't concerned for only his safety. He was concerned for mine and for my wife and his dogs. And it's his property, and he's dealt with them for quite a long time on his property. Strange things have gone on his property for 30 some odd years, 40 some years. And I mean, he's dealt with these creatures all that time. He just didn't know it was them for a long time. And then when he finally figured it out, he's had trouble with them coming up smacking his house. It caused his mom to have medical emergency once. And I mean, he's kind of fed up with it. Not kind of fed up with it. He is fed up with it. They've done this for years, and this one had gotten close, super close to us sitting outside, less than 100-yard distance. I would say probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 to 75 yards of us. And it was to the point where something had to be done. And everybody says, well, you don't want to shoot them, you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that. These creatures are flesh and blood people. They die just like you would if you get shot, and the bullets put in a place where, through the heart or through the head or anything like that, or into your stomach, it's going to cause quite a bit of problems for them. And since that night that this all went on, and the day after, the very next day he didn't hear anything. He hasn't heard a thing from them since then. He has not had any more issues, and even the coyotes have moved back in since last weekend. He hasn't had coyotes at his house for most of the summer, and we've been out there quite a few times. And it's just one of those things where it was either protect yourself and protect the ones that were with you, or there was something worse going to happen. And I would never let that happen to my friend or my wife. It's just that it was either him or us, and it had reached a point that it was him or us. And I know people are going to get upset about this, and I really don't care. You weren't in that situation. You weren't there. But if you got some constructive criticism, that's fine. But don't second guess us. We had to do what we had to do. We had to make split-second decisions. He did too. And if it had been my shoes, I'd have done the same thing. If the thing would have come up there towards us, the issue would be done. Bigfoot would be done. Because I would have hooked up to it with my 3/4-ton truck, drug that sucker up there. We'd have rolled that thing in the back of the truck and took it right in downtown and put it out right there in front of one of the local news agencies, and then everybody in the United States would have seen what a Bigfoot looks like. They're not pretty. They're not friendly. If you're feeding them, they're going to be friendly. If you're doing something for them, they're going to be friendly. There are some that are friendly and don't harm people, but this one was way too close. It's fine if they're 150, 200, 300 yards from you, and they can make all the noise they want. They can growl, they can scream, do whatever they want. But when they get within a 100-yard range and it's dark, you got one of two choices. You either let them know you have a firearm on you and tell them, hey, you need to leave, or the next sound you hear is going to be a bullet whizzing past your head. And I hate to say that, but human life is more important. It's more precious than one of these creatures. If you think otherwise, then by all means keep thinking that if you want to. I'm not going to tell you to change your thinking. I'm just going to tell you that sooner than later you're going to have trouble. And you may not come back. You may go out to feed one of these things, and one of them from a totally different clan has showed up, and it decides that it likes the taste of human flesh, which tastes like pork, according to people that have eaten people. Tastes like pork. I know it's a disgusting thought, but I'm sorry. It's the truth. And I don't want to, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm 100% right all the time, because I'm never right. The only one that's ever been right has been Jesus Christ. And as long as I'm told by him that I have dominion over this earth, just as God told Adam, then I'm going to obey his laws. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, you can complain to me. But it ain't going to change the way I think, because this little woman right here she means an awful lot to me. She means more than this world does. And the same goes for my children, and the same goes for my friend. I've been friends with him for well over 20 plus years, and he feels the same way about me and her. And he did what he had to do. And if you got a problem with it, complain to me. If you attack him, you're off. You won't be coming back to my channel. I'll block you in a heartbeat. And I hate to be that way, but that's the way it's going to be. And I'm going to do a shameless promotion. Ladies, pink and hot pink.
Mm-hmm. There's a real pretty baby
gentlemen,
blue,
if
too.
you got a anniversary coming up and she's into Bigfoot, one of these might keep you out of the proverbial hot water. And ladies, we got them in this blue and a baby blue.
The baby blue is really pretty. It was a hard choice.
Wasn't a hard choice for me.
I know, you don't like pink.
But take your time, go look at the store in the Teespring store. It's in my comments. It's not in the comments, it's in the community tab. Take a look at them. There's t-shirts, and there's a coffee mug in there with this ugly mug on there of Scar. That's what I call him, is Scar. And I hope you take a look at them, and if you want to buy one, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. It doesn't make any difference. We're not trying to make a killing out here. We're just trying to be informative of the situations that I've been in and that other people in the United States have been in. And it's not a great feeling to see one. It changes you. And it's a bad thing to have happen to you. And while I have you here, we lost a Bigfooter in a bad car accident. Mr. Kerry Arnold. We didn't see eye to eye all the time, but Kerry was a good man. He took care of his wife, took care of his family, and we should applaud his life. He has all the answers now to all the questions all of us have. And I want to send my condolences and send prayers to his wife, Linda, and I want to send prayers and condolences to his children. and all of his family, nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles. We are very sorry for your loss. We passed Carrie one time down in Gatlinburg at the the Squatch convention they had down there, and we didn't get to speak. He was busy. I was busy talking to some people that are into looking around for Bigfoot, and both of us was busy at the time, and I wish now that I would have just walked over and said, "Hey, come here, let's talk." I'd love to have had a chance to talk to him, but like I said, both of us were busy, and we didn't have time for each other, but I should have made time for him. And just, you don't know what to say when you lose someone. You know, whether you were close with them or not, it's tough. Like I said, he's a very good man. He's a good family man, and celebrate his life for what he's done in this world. He's going to be sorrowfully missed, and like I said, my condolences to his wife, his children, and everyone in his family. We're very sorry to hear about Carrie, and I hope and pray that he is sitting there beside that crystal clear water and is having a little talk with Jesus right now. So we pray for his family, we pray for his children, and I hope y'all are blessed by God every day. I hope and pray that every one of you are safe in everything you do and every day, because life is short, and we lost a good man at a younger age, and it breaks our heart to hear that we lost one. So I hope and pray all of you are blessed. I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you all for coming, and if you want one of these shirts, you know where to go. We thank you. Y'all have a wonderful night, and we're out of here. Bye-bye now.
Bye.